We are trying to get people to move. We're trying to get people to adopt behavior, and we invest in these vessels and meanings that we call brands to conjure up thoughts and feelings in the hearts and minds of people to increase their likelihood of moving.
Dr. Marcus Collins, an award-winning marketer, a professor, a former chief of strategy officer at Wieden & Kennedy. Also formerly worked with the likes of Beyonce, Nike, Apple, just to name a few. That's what people forget, right? Nike, Phil Knight, once upon a time, was a small disruptive startup.
He was making his sneakers with a waffle iron, literally making sneakers with a waffle iron. Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak were in a garage. Like, everyone starts with no fans, no listeners, no subscribers. We all start that way, and then we grow to something else. If Nike fails, oh, we're talking about it, i.e. everything in the headlines.
Yeah, we were talking
Nike.
about this earlier. You were saying that they're getting punched in the face right now.
That's right.
Do you think there's so many guys out there on rowboats right now that are just like absolutely swarming in on the market?
About the retailer. So then when people start going back to malls, back to stores, Nike wasn't there.
Dr. Marcus Collins. Dude, we've been friends for a while.
That's
I
right.
think we met 5 years ago.
Just about, yeah, it was since COVID times, about 2000, yes.
I was in my living room in my underpants, and we became friends. And to add some context so that doesn't sound weird, we did some projects together.
That's right, yeah, totally.
Yeah, one with Michigan Ross University, and I think what you're just bringing to the equation and teaching has been just incredible to watch you over the years, not only grow, but like expand and evolve and transform, and seeing you go from like doing lecture theaters to speaking on stages here in Australia, man, like you're crushing it.
I appreciate it, Doc. And truthfully, I feel like a peer. I feel like we're peers for sure.
Yeah, we're friends, man. And I think we're excited to have you here. And I was like salivating. I'm like, I can't wait till he comes. Like, I can't wait to dive in. It's been too long. And I think, yeah, like what you've been able to accomplish in your career has been insane, man. So I'm just excited to dive in and just unpack some of that. But I guess to kick things off, and we were joking about this before the pod, there's some Australianisms that you're like, what are you talking about? Yeah. So first and foremost, raw dogging it has a different different context and subject matter in the US. But here it just means to freestyle and go for it.
Yeah. In the US, it means something a bit more not safe for work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're excited you get to say it a lot.
That's right.
So let me throw some Australianisms at you.
Okay.
And then by the nature of how they sound or feel like they're branded, I want you to guess what you think it is.
Okay, let's do it.
All right. So the first one is smashing tinnies.
Smashing tinnies?
Yeah.
I suppose it's drinking beer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's correct, man.
Yeah.
Good job.
Okay, good. At
all
first
right.
I thought you said smashing something else. I was like, okay, raw dog smashing.
Gotta work on my pronunciation. Smashing tinnies.
Tinnies. The tinnies made me think of the
How did
cans.
you know what that was?
When you said tinnies, I thought cans, smashing them, you drink it. And
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's well branded internationally.
yeah,
Okay, there we
totally.
go. There we go. I just learned something.
But as long as you enunciate it, though, you got to make sure you pronounce
Yeah.
tinnies.
Yeah. Tinnies.
Ninnies.
Tinnies. This hasn't even started, man. It's off the rails already. I love it. There's another Australian one, which is we're not here to fuck spiders.
Okay. Is that not, we're not here to F around?
It's a saying. Yeah, we're not here to fuck around. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, okay, that
But
translates
why
well.
spiders? Why?
It's just stupid.
Okay. And there are a plethora of them.
Yeah, the more confusing and illiterate and stupid it is, I think the more it resonates.
Okay.
Yeah, and you'll notice that we tend to shorten everything. So instead of saying McDonald's, we'll say Macca's.
Oh,
Yeah,
interesting.
or we'll change it and distort it, and we'll call it Mickey D's.
Okay, we do Mickey D's too. Macca's. That's a new one for me though.
That's new for you?
Yeah, Macca's. Never heard. Mickey D's for sure.
Yeah.
But not Macca's.
It's weird if Australian says, let's go to McDonald's. Everyone's like,
Interesting.
you do mean Macca's? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we like to steal brands and change them.
Okay. I like
And Starbucks is Starbies.
Starbies. Okay.
Yeah. What does chuck a sickie mean?
Chuck a sticky.
Chuck a sickie.
Chuck a sickie. Is that smoke a cigarette?
No, it means to be, you're going to have a sick day.
Chuck a sickie.
Yeah.
That's great. Chuck a sickie.
Yeah, it's
okay.
like, I'm not going to go to work that day. I'm just going to pretend I'm sick.
Oh, got it. Okay. It's like playing hooky.
What does that mean?
Playing hooky is when you're going to skip school.
Oh,
Are you gonna skip work? You're gonna skip a thing. I'm playing hooky.
yeah. So
I don't know the etymology of it, but
we call it we're gonna wag. Like I'm gonna wag school tomorrow. Everyone's like, know what you mean? Chuck a hooky.
chuck a hooky.
Okay. What's a bludger?
A bludger. Ooh. I think something violent, like someone bludgeoning you with a
Okay.
knife.
I can see how that would translate. Yeah. So a bludger is someone who doesn't do anything and lives on what we call the dole, and the dole is the government pension. So bludger is like someone who doesn't have a job
Sure.
and relies on the government.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We call him a slacker.
A
Where we are. He's a slacker. Didn't do anything.
We call him a bludger, like you don't do anything. You know. Okay. So next one is having a squiz.
Having a squiz. Having a
Saying that, it
squiz.
sounds so terrible.
I don't know what's going through my mind right now. Having a squiz.
Just don't think R-rated. It's pretty standard. Having a squiz.
Oh, man, I have no clue. I mean, I have no clue.
Just take a stab in the dark.
For some reason, thinking of having a poop. I don't know. I don't know. Like,
So squiz means to like peek or stare.
oh, having a squiz.
Yeah. So like if a pretty girl walks past, you're like, oh, I'm gonna have a squiz.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Having a squiz.
Kind of like it's kind of like squinting.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a squiz or have a squiz at that. Or
I love
I
this.
took a squiz.
This is so enlightening for me. I love this.
I just want to give you a layup for tomorrow, man. When you're on stage.
Totally.
This next one. All right. What's a wanker?
A wanker? Oh, this is like it's a pejorative for someone who sucks.
Oh, that's such a technical term.
I never. It's very British,
What was
right?
that first
like,
word you said?
A pejorative. It's like a negative
pejorative.
Thing. Something to say something negative about someone.
Man, I'm learning these words.
But that's
great.
a British thing, right?
Yeah.
This wanker.
Yeah.
I feel like I heard Clive Owen say it in a movie or something.
What does it mean to be pissed?
Pissed?
Yeah.
Like upset.
Okay, cool. That
Yeah.
translates. That's
Yeah.
cool. Oh, what's another
But
tough
what's
one?
interesting is that we'll say I'm pissed, but we don't say take the piss out of it.
Oh, you don't
Which
say
is
that?
that's a British thing, right? You guys say that too? Take a piss out of something?
I think it is a British term.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
don't say take the piss out of it.
Yeah.
We say I take a piss. I gotta go to
Yeah.
the bathroom. I'm not taking the piss out of it. Like how you take the piss out of a thing? I don't know.
I remember when I was in Germany last week, and I was like, "Do you know where the bathroom is, the toilet?" And they're like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "Water closet." And they're like, "Oh, it's over here."
Water closet.
Yeah. So in Germany, it's a water closet. They don't use toilet or bathroom.
And then in Britain they go the loo.
Yeah.
Do you guys say the loo?
We say the dunny.
The dunny.
I think that's trending out. It's not cool anymore. But like when I was a kid, you're like, I have to use the dunny. I have to.
I mean, I think this is so fascinating.
Yeah.
Because what we're highlighting here is that even though we speak English,
Yeah.
like we speak the same language, culturally there are colloquialisms, there are shorthands that we use that have different meanings. And
Yeah.
the idea is that you have to be close to the culture to understand the meanings, even though we're speaking the same language.
I would agree with that. And it's like almost in a weird way, this could be translated into, well, what is branding? And branding is creating a new set of meanings.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. Like the literature talks about branding or brands as vessels of meaning. They're identifiable signifiers that conjure up thoughts and feelings in the hearts and minds of people. And these meanings are negotiated and constructed, just like, Dunny.
Yeah.
Like that's like people gave it meaning. And to your point, like it's moving out, that is moving out of favor, and therefore its meaning, the significance of that meaning is decreasing.
It's depreciating, yeah.
Exactly.
Over time.
And those things, we decide that. Like we decide what's acceptable. I mean, 10 years from now, we may be saying take the piss out of it in the States. Right? I only heard that because a lot of Brits who work in advertising, who are planners, go, we gotta take the piss out of it. And I go,
Yeah.
Of course you
You're
say
like,
that.
oh, you'll probably go back home and take all these inside the museum, and your family are like, what does that mean?
I tell you, if I had an English accent, y'all couldn't tell me nothing. I'd be like the killer strategist for sure. Like, anytime you sit with a British accent, you always sound better.
It always sounds way cooler.
Totally.
Yeah, you could say the most mundane thing and it sounds interesting. Yeah. But if I said that in Australianisms, no one cares.
It's so true. It's so
Yeah.
true.
All right, I got two more for you.
Okay.
So the next one is chuck on some tracky dacks.
What? Chuck on some
Chuck on some tracky dacks.
Chuck on some tracky dacks. Dude, I have zero clue.
So chuck on, which means to put clothes on.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
And usually chuck on is like, I'm going to chuck on my shoes, chuck on my hat, chuck on my watch. We're just going to put items on myself.
Okay.
Or on oneself. Tracky dax is like a tracksuit. Yeah. And like the pants. The track, like the full outfit.
I thought you were playing with me. I thought you just made that up.
You're like, you set me up.
We were in the car the other day. My daughter was like, oh, Dad, it's so skibbity. And I was like, Georgia, you just made that up right now. She's like, no, that's a thing. I was like, skibbity, Georgia? That doesn't mean anything. And she's like, yes, it is. Like, you just don't know it. You're too old.
How old is she?
She's 9.
Yeah.
I know what's cool. Sure enough, skibbity's a thing.
That's like the new demure.
I mean, Chuck
I can't even say the word.
I thought you just made that up right there to play with me.
No,
take
for
the piss
real.
out of it.
No, for real. You probably weren't here in Sydney, but it's a thing. Okay, last common one, which is what are budgie smugglers?
Budgie smugglers. I don't know. I don't know.
So if you think about your package and you could smuggle it with a thong.
Oh, like your butt?
No, like your frontal crotch
Oh,
region.
your package. Oh.
So just think it looks like a budgie that's being smuggled.
Get
Yeah,
out.
especially if it's yellow. Looks like a little budgie.
This is amazing.
This is Stray, man. Welcome. You've only been here for 6 hours, by the way.
This is amazing. My IQ is through the roof at this point. It's unbelievable.
So you're ready. But yeah, so you arrived, you were on a 21-hour flight. So you went to Detroit, then to LA, and then straight here. And
That's right.
About 21 hours.
Yeah.
Did you sleep?
I slept for sure.
Okay.
Slept for a little while, did a little work, ate a little bit, went back to sleep, watched a movie here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, welcome.
I mean,
what
that
did
whole
you
trip
watch?
to LA, I just like worked the whole time.
Oh, yeah.
And the Wi-Fi wasn't working from LA to Sydney. And I was like, what world do we live in right now? Which is wild because 10 years ago, we didn't have Wi-Fi available like that.
No.
But I mean, it says so much about the hedonic treadmill that we're on that we have these expectations for things that weren't a thing. And like, I was literally upset. Like, I was like, great, I can't talk to anybody.
Yeah. Like, what am I going to do for 19 hours?
Seriously, I can't check my email. It's wild.
Yeah.
And I think that this becomes a challenge for companies, for brands, that people are constantly updating their expectations because of the world that they live in. And as a result, as a brand, you have to live up to that. I think of it this way, before you're catching a cab, you had to wait for the cab to come, then you get in the cab, and then you got to, hassle with the person after the fact, pay it, then go. But now you jump in a car, it's frictionless. You don't have to talk to anybody in the Uber. Like my right over here, I didn't talk at all.
Yeah. It's great. We don't even have to know each other.
I can I'd be on the phone talking and not stop the phone call at all, get out, say nothing, go to a restaurant. When I get there, I have to wait for someone to acknowledge me, and then wait for someone to seat me, and then wait for someone to take my order.
If someone could just make the Uber of restaurants.
I mean, these are all ways in which we disrupt, because what a restaurant may not realize is that it's competing with the experience I just had at Uber. Like, I had a frictionless experience, and then now I'm experiencing you with all the the ease of before. Now I'm just taking inventory of all the discomforts that are happening here.
Because if you have something to contrast because again, you're just going through kind of like an unconscious sedation of experiences.
That's right.
And then all of a sudden you're like, hang on a second, this experience feels so different to the one I just had.
That's right.
I just had a seamless, easy, simplistic, ease of use experience. Now I'm like making decisions. What the hell's happening?
Yeah, and why I have to wait? I'm waiting. I have to wait for my food. Then the food gets here. I have to wait to pay you. It's like, why am I waiting so much?
Yeah.
And we only have that angst because we didn't have to wait before. And it's this level of frictionless experiences that we have that then becomes the frame by which we view everything else.
I saw a comedian make a joke, which in a weird way was kind of like, you could take it seriously, but when someone masks a joke so well, you're like, this is hilarious. But then when you sit on it afterwards, you're like, that's actually kind of dark. But what he was saying was like, he's like, our society right now, we are so conscious of having mindfulness because society no longer has mindfulness. And he's like, when's the last time I took a shit without being on a phone and like being on the internet? He's like, that was 10 years ago. He's like, I've
wild.
not taken a shit without my phone in 10 years. But then he's like, you know, when you had to catch a bus somewhere, you didn't have Wi-Fi or a subscription to a cable service in your pocket. You had to watch the condensation on the window.
And just wait.
So you had mindfulness.
That's right.
He's like, you had heaps of mindfulness. You could watch condensation.
That's
you could
right.
watch grass grow. You could like, you just didn't have this constant need or like almost like unconscious reaction to go, oh, this is a bit of an awkward conversation. No one's talking to me. I'm going to pull my phone out.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, my daughters, especially my eldest daughter, you know, she'd be like, I'm bored. I'm like, bored? Look at everything you have around you. Are you kidding me right now? Bored? Like, I remember being a kid at my grandparents' house watching hours of MTV just waiting for a Michael Jackson video. Like,
Yeah.
I'd sit there and watch. That's why I know so many songs that are out, or so much music that's outside of like the genres I grew up listening to, because I just watched the videos waiting for Thriller or Beat It to come on.
Yeah.
Or Billie Jean. Like
Yeah.
those three, I just waited hours. And like,
You're like, oh, it's here. Record, you know.
and
yeah.
like my daughters have everything on demand. And like there's just a level of sort of agency that you have now that we didn't have. And as a result, we were much more resourceful with our time. We were much more imaginative. Like we'd be bored. Like my mother would take me to the library with her when she was working on her dissertation. And I'm like, I'm here for 7 hours. I guess I got to read a book. you
Yeah.
know?
No, it's interesting. We had a guest on the pod, and he went to Survivor, and he was in the Australian outback for, I believe, 42 days. And he said he came back because it's like no phones, no internet, no technology. You're just with this group, and you're living on rice and beans, and like that's it. And he said for like the first like 16 days, it was horrible.
Yeah.
And then eventually, he's like, your circadian rhythm kicks in, and you start to realize like, this is pretty good. I got a routine. I wake up, I eat at the same time, I hang out with people, I do the same kind of, you know, monotonous routine. And then he said when he came back to society, everything like was hyper stimulative.
Sure.
So like the LED lights were way brighter.
Oh,
The
wow.
beer hit way different. Phone gaming was 10 times more addictive. It's like everything flooded him with so much more dopamine.
Yeah. It's when you cut sugar out your diet or you minimize sugar in your diet, everything tastes sweeter.
Interesting.
And it's, you know, I think it is this hedonic treadmill that we find ourselves on, that we are always sort of calibrating to what's around us, the environment that's around us. And that's sort of the adaptive nature of humanity. And I think that the technologies that we use extend human behavior, but is still grounded in what it means to be human. And we adapt to where we are. And that first couple weeks, first couple days, terrible. And after a while, you go, this is so bad, actually. This isn't so bad.
I want to try and kick sugar. That's definitely something I want to do. Yeah.
Man, I got sugar bad.
Yeah, me too, man. Yeah, we got coffee here. There's plenty of sugar in it for you. Dude, catch me up on what's been happening, because I understand you were, you were at Wyden and Kennedy.
Yep.
And about the time we met, you were in the middle of writing your book. And then now all of a sudden, I'm seeing you on television, on stages. You're traveling all the time. You're a big shot. You're killing it.
I don't know about that.
I feel you came, dude. No word of a lie. You came in the office and someone saw you and was like, "Dude, is that Marcus Collins?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "I gotta give him a hug." He came up, he high fived you.
It's very, very.
He was
sweet.
panicking.
Very sweet.
Yeah.
So interesting. I am very grateful because life has been significantly different. When we met, I was teaching at Michigan. I just signed a publishing deal for my book, and I was doing like consulting work. I was working with like Google and Peloton and whatever. And I joined Wyden Kennedy to lead strategy there in the New York office, which was awesome. I mean, Wyden Kennedy is considered one of the best agencies in.
Can you just describe Wyden and Kennedy for the viewers?
So Wyden Kennedy is a creative agency, independent, fiercely independent, and they're known for being great storytellers. The founding client for Wyden Kennedy was Nike.
Wow.
And the way the story goes, that Dan Wyden of Wyden Kennedy was in Portland, Oregon. He met this guy named Phil Knight, who owned this company called Nike. That at the time wasn't big. Like they were they were very, very new, focused only on running. and they met each other in a social setting. And Phil Knight says, "Hey, I'm Phil Knight. I run this company called Nike." And Dan goes, "Oh, I've heard of it before." He's, "Yeah." And they weren't big at the time. He's like, "I heard it before." And Dan says, "I work in advertising." And the way the lore goes, Phil goes, "I hate advertising." And Dan goes, "Oh, interesting. But, I kind of hate it too sometimes." I think, and he said, "But maybe we just find ways to work together." I think what Phil was emoting is that he hated traditional advertising, the way we traditionally told stories about brands and branded products. They're always value proposition driven, and none of it like spoke to the soul. And Dan and his partner, Dave Kennedy, began to work with Phil Knight and Nike, and they made Just Do It.
Incredible.
Yeah, so all of Nike's work has been made by Wyden and Kennedy.
So that like the tagline was because of Wyden and Kennedy.
Yes, and apparently the way the story goes is that Dan Wyden was watching the news, and there was like a serial killer or something like that.
I've heard this. I want to validate this story.
He got arrested, and they asked him, "Why did he do it?" He said, "I just did it." And Dan said, "That's what we should do with Nike. Just do it." That's my understanding of the story. That's the way the folklore is told. There's a lot of folklore.
I wanted to vet this out because I've heard this through the branding space, which is like literally heard a serial killer on the news and was like,
that's the folklore.
It's a great shoe campaign.
That's the lore. That's the lore. And for a brand like Nike, it makes all the sense in the world. Here's a brand that believes every human body is an athlete. Big, small, short, tall, we're all athletes. The only thing keeping us from realizing our best athletic self is us. So therefore, we should just do it. And I think, Dan Griswold, like those early folks there at Wyden Kennedy, they really changed how we think about advertising. I mean, they were the standard bearers of how we told rich, evocative stories for brands. And I was very grateful to be a part of it, to contribute. One brick on the edifice of that is Wyden Kennedy. And while I was there, I was still teaching full-time at Michigan and was writing this book. And in my mind, honestly, Dana, I kid you not, in my mind, the book was going to be a thing I did. Just something one other thing I'd add to the resume. In my mind, I thought I would be at Wyden still teaching, and like giving some talks on the side about the book, truthfully. But the book comes out, and it does way more than that, like very early. And I go, whoa, I think this is a thing. And I was telling my wife, I was like, I think this might be a thing to do outside of the thing, outside of like the agency world. I just felt like you only have one time to be a first-time author. And just considering the momentum in the marketplace out the gate, I was like, I think I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna bet on me. I'm gonna give it a shot. And thank God I did. It's just been awesome. And it's not like, I don't think it's because like I'm so great at all. I just think it was the right story for the right time, which you know so very well.
Yeah, you hit the right note and you struck
time.
a chord, and I think that's, whether you look at it as marketing or branding or advertising, what have you, it's just you struck a chord.
Yeah,
and it resonates.
There's some serendipity there.
Business owners, if you're stuck using one platform for every project, you're probably stuck in a growth bottleneck. More clients means more hires, which just adds noise and cuts into profits. To break the loop, you need flexible tools that don't stretch your resources. Wix Studio is a smart addition to your business toolkit. Intuitive by design, your team can quickly master the platform and focus on the work that matters the most. Then keep up the momentum with a built-in management tool, a unified dashboard, reusable assets, and a Figma plugin that turns static design into launch-ready websites. With robust native business solutions like bookings, e-commerce, and events, you can take any project at any scale without the added cost of third-party plugins. Plus, Wix Studio is a low-maintenance platform, meaning you can redirect the client budget towards real growth initiatives. Think more value for clients, steady income streams, and stronger relationships. To get started, simply go to wix.com/studio.
I think that the marketplace, particularly in the world of marketing and advertising, there's a lot of like abstract talk about culture. And I provided some concreteness, a way to talk about it, apply it, codify it, and then show case studies of how those things work.
Because I think in the book you add context. It's like, oh, that's what culture is.
Exactly.
Right. And I think it's a concept where a lot of people go culture and they really struggle to know what that means.
That's 1,000%.
Like
And
if you
for
ask
me,
100 people like, hey, like what's the culture of your company? You just watch them go, oh, and like unfolds into origami, you know, like they're like, what do you mean? What is culture? It's a hard thing to define.
That's right. And I think that and thankfully the literature has been so overwhelmingly great at defining it. I just kind of took it and recontextualized it. Like people who are a million times smarter than me, who've been working on this for literally a century, like Emil Durkheim, like 1800s wrote about this. Just taking it and contemporizing it for a modern context, and then providing work that I've done as a practitioner to say, here's that thinking in action, taking from the intellectual to the practice. And I think it was just very timely. And some early people caught on to it and like, this is good. And it continued to move and moved and moved. And I think that right around, I think the October of 2023, when I won the Thinkers 50 award, it was a pretty big inflection point. The Thinkers 50 is, it's an institution in many ways that sort of recognizes some of the biggest thinkers in management, business management. I didn't know about them. Honestly, they weren't on my radar at all because I'm not an academic, and this is not, this is a world that I've been flirting with, not really in it. Like one foot in, one foot out, literally. But when Thinkers 50 recognized it, and I won the Radar Award for the idea most likely to shape the future of business management, I think people started paying attention. And again, and it wasn't like overnight kaboom. It was just, this is everything you talk about. This is just consistent. And when that happens, you get this, this network effect of aggregation that just been going really, really well.
How long was the book in the market until it? So this is 2023 you're talking about.
Yeah.
At what point were you finished writing and it was published and now in the market?
Oh, so I finished the book. I think I submitted the manuscript in October 2022.
Yeah.
And then the book hit shelves May 2023. So it's been a year and a half since the book has been out. But I tell you, I feel like the book is just starting to catch on.
Interesting.
Which is wild. I mean, it feels that way for me. Now,
because a lot of books are like that, right?
Yeah, these
like
long tail things.
There are a lot of long tail books that take but they just become like, how would you say, like they have shelf life. They just seemingly hit a note, and sometimes they don't really strike a chord until it hits a certain threshold.
That's right.
Yeah.
And for me, coming from the music industry, I thought that the first week sales matter the most. It's like movies, music. That it's those first week sales tend to signal the life of the product. Now I didn't come out the gate, selling thousands and thousands of books out the gate. That wasn't the case at all. It was a slow burn over time. It was a consistent burn, which for me felt like, oh, if I do this well, then it will continue to have consistency, but that consistency will be at an angle,
When you were writing it, were you conscious of like, I'm trying to write something that is kind of permanently relevant and contextualized, or were you just like, I'm just trying to write something that I'm really feeling? Like, what was your headspace?
I wish I had that level of clairvoyance, that level of vision.
Was it more like, oh, fuck, I got to write this book. I got to get the publishing date,
Here's, honestly, I'm going to keep it true with you because it's you. Keep it true.
Keep it 100, man. Yeah.
100%. I wrote the book thinking that I would take my doctoral dissertation and just transfer it over to a book. So
interesting. So you were like, I've kind of done the work. I'm just going to like restructure it to fit a book.
Legit.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm just going to take my dissertation, just going to turn it into a book. Boom, done. So in fact, I had
a really successful assignment.
So I had 18 months to deliver the manuscript. The first 3 months, I didn't even touch the book. Because I was like, what's my dissertation? Like, I'm just going to chill for 3 months. Just kind of, chill for a little bit, enjoy myself. And I sat down and started writing the book. I think I wrote maybe 5,000 words. And a book is more like...
It's like a chapter, Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I wrote like 5,000 words and I go, I'm done. I got nothing else to say. I legit was like, I don't know what else to say here. I got nothing else to communicate. And I was like, oh, dude, this is not good. Like, I don't know how I'm going to finish this book. I was like, I've never done anything. Who am I to believe I could write this thing? Marcus, you're an idiot. Why? I mean, I'm like literally beating myself up. Like, dude, this is a bad deal. This isn't going to be great.
And how much time did you have between this revelation?
So I got like 14 months.
Yeah.
Like, okay, wow, what am I going to do here?
Yeah.
So I thought, like, all right, what can I say about culture that hasn't been said already? And of course, I studied this in my doctoral program, and I just found myself just kind of going over things that people already wrote. Like, there's nothing new that I'm giving to this. I said, well, maybe I can like look at it through a hip hop lens because I'm a fan of hip hop, and my doctoral work was in the field of hip hop as well. And I go, yeah, but like, how interesting is that? I didn't feel like terribly interesting or terribly helpful. So I mean, I like talk to my wife about this. Like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like, I don't know what to write. I'm like legit don't know what to write. And something dawned on me. I was like, well, how did those earlier scholars in sociology approach culture? They observed religion. And I go, oh man, I'm a church boy. Like, I grew up. I'm a church boy.
Yeah.
I can talk about culture through religious lens and focus it on marketing and sort of color it with hip hop. I was like, that's an interesting Venn diagram. I think that's a book that only I could write. It's like, I'm gonna do that. And I wrote the book not thinking I'm gonna write this like manifesto. I didn't think anything at that at all. I still don't think that that's what it is either. I just wrote the book that I thought was the most honest version of how I saw the world. That's it. Like, I was like, just be so honest. And I was more vulnerable than I thought I was going to be. I revealed more than I thought I had planned to do. But what I find so reassuring is when I meet people who read the book and was like, dude, I never thought I could talk about my faith in the world of business because I feel like faith and business don't go together.
Wow.
But the fact that you talked about yours, saying you talked about me, I can talk about mine. Or like, dude, you talk about your kids all the time. I never thought you could do that. And it just, I feel like being vulnerable gave people permission to be vulnerable. And that felt really cool.
What is it about the way you wrote the book that you felt like really resonated? Was there like one consistent thing, or was it like different for everyone?
I think it was the balance between the academic lens and the practice lens. That the academic lens, I think, gave it credence.
Like credibility.
Exactly. Yeah. And it gave people language for things they already felt. And like that, like, you know, when we first met, you knew this stuff forwards and backwards.
Yeah.
And you talk about it in your content in ways people go, oh yeah, I get that. Yeah. Like, you just did this so well. You're able to translate sort of the scholarly literature about brands and say, hey, this is basically what it means. And people go, yeah, I like that guy. And you become the conduit for connecting the dots in this way. And I think that for me is sort of similar in nature, that I talk about culture in ways that people go, oh, I get that. Right? When I talk about, like, you know, that people see the world differently, you know that abstractly. We know that sort of intellectually. But if I say for some a cow is leather, for others it's a deity, and for some it's dinner, people go, oh, I get that. Yeah. Like, that takes a very, you know, a very esoteric idea and makes it very, very tangible. And I think that people got that out of my book. At least that's what
Like, it's digestible. It's
yes.
They can add and apply it to themselves pretty easily and quickly.
And by the way, I didn't think I was writing that way. I didn't think I was like, I'm gonna break this down so that the layman can get it. I just said, I'm going to communicate this in the ways that I communicate to my clients, the way I communicate to my students, in hopes that people who need to understand it can understand it.
I think that's so important because whenever I'm trying to communicate my best work, it's always like, this is how I would say it.
That's right.
And I think people can honestly and oftentimes get caught up, like if you're trying to produce content or you're trying to write your own book or you're trying to, you know, create something, we tend to think, oh, we have to come up with completely original, new, never seen or thought about before ideas.
Right.
And you're saying that oftentimes you can be a conduit and just translate the amalgamation of things that you know and just go, I see it this way.
That's right. And it's original because it's you. Like, you, by the very nature of being you, there's only one of you. And when you communicate in ways that are true to who you are, it's going to be novel. And I think that, like, you know, you do this all the time, so you know this well, that we try to find like what other people are doing when it comes to content. Like let's mimic that so my stuff can go viral, people can see it, and you go, oh man, then it's hard to differentiate one from the other. But it's when you do it your way in a way that's uniquely you that people who see it the way you do or gravitate to it go, that's really cool. And then they take it and go share with other people who are like them. And you get the reverberation of that network effect is far greater than what you could ever do by yourself. So when people who are like, hey, so-and-so told me about your book, that has a much greater appeal than me trying to hawk my book at people, trying to get them to buy it.
And so then how long did it take to write that? And at what point were you kind of done and ready?
You know, I think I was up to the last minute for sure. I think that
like 95% in the last month.
Once I got a feel for like that Venn diagram of like, I'm gonna look at culture through a religious lens, look at the theology of culture as a metaphor to talk about it with brands, leverage my experience either as a practitioner or things that I loved in the market that maybe I didn't do. And then like always kind of look at it through like a hip hop lens or maybe argue like a very black lens, like through my lived experience and just be very, very honest. Once I got there, the writing started to flow. Now I'll say that and say, I am not a like fast writer at all. In fact, I find writing to be very, very painful, very painful. Like, I don't like writing, but I love to have written, so I write.
That's a nice reframe.
Seriously, I mean, it's like it's painful. It's like you know, chugging the gears to get it going takes so much time. Then once it's going, then it starts moving. But it's
tough,
you
man.
gotta crank to get me going.
It's like you open a blank page and you type in and then you're like, okay, now what?
That's right. That's right. And I took all the advice where it said, you know, start early in the morning, start writing in the morning. That didn't work for me because it takes me so much time to get going. Start writing at night. Like by the time I do that, I'm like exhausted from the day. They told me to write every day. I didn't do it. It was difficult. And actually, I did most of my writing on airplanes.
I did the same thing.
Flying in a hotel. Like I wrote this book in like 7 different countries. I was going somewhere else. I'm like, write a little bit, right on the plane, right here, right there.
I had the same experience. I was like Hong Kong, Mexico City,
exactly.
LA, because I was on this big trip. It was like I wrote the biggest chunk of my book on like a 46-hour trip from like here to Mexico City. And why was it a 46-hour trip? Because my friend was flying me business class the whole way, and he was trying to make it work. So, but the interesting thing was I had like a matter of like weeks to hit this deadline.
Yeah.
And I had so much going on. I got kids and I got the business and everything's just going haywire. And I was like, this is perfect. I'm going to have this like 14 days in Mexico.
Yeah.
It's going to be brilliant. I'm just going to be isolated. And most of it was written on the flight. Yeah. And the best part about flying business class was you literally lay there and you have a table and that's it. And it's boring as hell. There's no Wi-Fi, no distractions. And people just hand you food every 2 hours.
That's right.
Every 2 hours, would you like a hot towel? Would you like coffee? Would you like food? I'm like, yes, let me keep writing.
That's right. So that was my experience. I just wrote a lot. And I wrote to the very end, like to the very, 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 very end. And I was grateful. And I had the benefit of having a really good editor.
Yeah, that's a big one.
So my editor was amazing. Her name was Colleen. And she did a good job of making sure that I didn't go too deep in rabbit holes and didn't assume that the audience knew things. So she'd be quick to be like, nah, lost me here. What are you talking about? Or like, you just went straight to this thing. You got to give me some context. Or like, dude, you are so deep into this thing. Please come up.
Yeah.
And she was really great in helping me balance because I just got done writing for 3 years my dissertation, which is extremely academic literature and language. And I wanted to make sure that my peers on the academic side wouldn't read my book and go, you watered down everything, dude. Like this was not significant. But I didn't want to talk too highfalutin where the average person would read this like, I don't know what you're saying. And my editor was really good at like, just say it like you talk. Say it like you talk. And I go, all right, that's what I'm gonna do. Like, and she was like, you know, when I read this, she's like, this doesn't sound like you at all. This sounds like academic Marcus.
Yeah.
And so she was really good at that. And right to the very end, she's like pushed me and pushed me and pushed me. And I think I turned the manuscript in like the day it was due. And I was like, you're 18 months in.
Does that sound familiar, Cam? He's like, it's due tomorrow. I'm like, I'm writing tonight. You know,
Seriously, yeah.
yeah.
It was like, it was up to the last minute. And then you get the proof back and you get to do some edits on the proof. And I wanted to write some more. And she was like, no.
I had the same experience. Yeah.
No.
How good are editors? Because it's like you think you're writing this great material, and I went on a rampage for one chapter, and I wrote like 16,000 words, and I was like, it's all great. It's like it's the best thing I've ever written. It was fantastic. Then the team and the editor come back, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna use about 2,000 words of this,
Dude.
I'm like, wait, what? No, like I that's my best stuff. And they're like, no, you went too deep here and this didn't make sense. We called this. And I'm like, oh, fuck.
When I saw her first edits, I was like, yo, you're cutting out all the good stuff. This is the good stuff. This is the best story. Why are you cutting that out?
Yeah.
But she was right. She was right. And I think, for me, I've spent so much time working as like a solopreneur, even in an agency, like if I'm running the department or I'm running this thing, it's sort of my perspective that I'm trying to impart on the team and then have it apply to the work. And even though I get pushback, which is good, it's typically not from someone where like they have more agency than I have in the matter. Because my editor could be like, nah, we ain't doing it. Nope. And she would have final call, So I had to like get her to buy into it, not just like convince her, and that was a new dynamic for me. And I had to tell myself, look, she knows this better than you do, A. B, she wants you to win. I think that's something that I had to like wrestle with, because I feel like in the past, as a practitioner, I was always trying to convince people to understand it so that I could win, as opposed to saying these people have a vested interest in me winning. And
what do you think that revelation really was, if you were to get concise on what you felt you learned?
Oh, I think I learned for sure that I need editing first. That like the ideas are, think of it this way. Quincy Jones, who just passed, amazing producer, unbelievable producer. But he bring in Bruce Sweden, who engineered all of Michael Jackson's stuff. He'd bring in the best songwriters, the best players, the best. And even Quincy would go, no, too much of this. Turn that down, a little bit of that. Don't play on the eighth note, play this note. Even Quincy's giving advice to the best. Michael Jordan had a coach. And he is, in my opinion, the best basketball player ever.
Yeah, you're talking about Tim Grover, right?
Yeah, we all need coaches. We had Phil Knight too. Like we all need coaches. Everyone needs a coach. And in that scenario, my editor was my coach. And I think in working as a practitioner, I didn't have a coach. I had a boss, the CEO. Right. And
which is a different dynamic. Because a boss, you're like, all right, your word is the law. Whereas a coach, you're like, I'm the one that's doing it.
That's right.
And then it can be easy for you to say, well, you don't get it because I'm the one that has to think of the ideas and write it. And they're like, yeah, but my job is to make it good, make it legible, and make it sell. So then
I think that for the boss to employee relationship is that the boss cares about the organization winning.
That's true.
Not me necessarily.
Yeah.
There are instances where like I may not win, but the organization wins. But I felt like with my editor, for the first time in like a professional relationship, that I felt like she was invested in me winning. That the book winning meant I win. And the book wouldn't win if I didn't win. And that became just very clear for me. I was like, okay, this person wants you to win, Marcus. Listen to her.
So would you like define it more of a like I don't know if this is the right terminology, but like a symbiotic relationship where it's like both parts equally need each other to survive, whereas in the workplace dynamic, a boss and an employee don't really need that same outcome.
Yeah, like I think of it like, use a basketball metaphor again, the general manager wants a team to win. Like win. We need butts and seats at the game, and we get more W's than losses. Like that means more money. The coach wants the team to perform well, but they need everyone to operate the highest fidelity possible. And I just felt like she was like a coach for me. That like she wanted me to win, and therefore her feedback was in an effort to get to the best solutions based on her interpretation of my work.
So going through that experience, have you then looked at other places in your life and asked yourself, I need a coach?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. I think that like I find myself more curious than I ever have been because I want to know how would you approach this? Tell me walk me through your thought process so I can learn from it. And even someone asked me a couple months ago, like 2 months ago, and they said, how can I help? And I was like, oh man. I was like, well, you could give me this, that, and the third. They go, no. How can I really help you? And I go, I never really thought about it that way. I've always thought about I need opportunities. But really what I need someone is to sort of look at the thing through lenses that I haven't looked at it and give me some point of view that help me optimize it. And like that's what coaches are. That's what like your board of directors are. Like it's those people who are invested in you winning. And they'll tell you the things that might hurt a little bit, but it's going to make you better.
I think that's so important. And interestingly enough, like to pull us back to culture, would you say it's a cultural norm for people to have that kind of mindset on, whether it be in business or academia or, working for an agency?
Yeah.
Do you think people maybe need to adopt more of that culturally in society to be better?
It's definitely a cultural mindset. For instance, in Israel is considered an innovation hub. Like so much innovation comes out of Israel. There's 7 miles of desert, right? It's been industrialized, of course, but it's what's unique about this place.
Well, you hear Israel, you don't think innovation,
but tons of it. Like the firewall was created in
I didn't
Israel.
know that.
Like unbelievable. And scientists have gone to Israel to get an understanding of what's happening here. And here's what they find. It's based on rabbinic culture.
Rabbinic?
Rabbis.
Oh,
Israel, like Jewish rabbis.
like the passing down of knowledge, or
So interesting this. For rabbis, they believe that debate is sacred. That to debate a thing was like divine. So like they debate the Torah forwards and backwards. Like every word in the Torah, in their Bible, is up for debate. That is like a sacred part of what it means to be a rabbi, and one would say Jewish in general. And that theological perspective is then shifted over into the secular. So people who are, even if you're a secular Jew, you still hold on to this idea about debate. So much so that even entrepreneurs in Israel will say, if you don't debate, then you're an idiot. So think of it this way. When they are in their rooms, in their boardrooms, coming up with ideas, they are debating the ideas forwards and backwards. It's being interrogated 2 ways from Sunday. And by the time it leaves the room, it's been vetted rigorously.
it's like a CIA agent idea.
Compare that to the United States. If the most senior person in the room goes, dang, that's a great idea. Everybody goes, yeah, totally, that's the idea. Absolutely, 100%. You go out the room and go, that's never going to work. But the culture is such that when we're in the room, you agree with the most senior person. You don't debate. And that's why the failure rate of ideas in the States are like 70% relative to what it is in Israel. Not because the people are smarter, not because the people are better, but because of the culture.
Why does debate add value to contextualizing an idea?
Yeah, because debate does what the market is going to do. Debate provides different perspectives to scrutinize where there are shortcomings. But when you don't debate, you go, this is great. Nothing's bad. This is amazing. And you put in the market, go, why didn't anybody like this? And then you go, you know what? Actually, this did kind of suck. I knew this was going to suck. And that was kind of bad. No one ever said it. We should have said it. Never again.
So culturally, I guess if we take the States in your frame of reference, it's I would agree. We tend to go along with what the leader says.
That's right.
And, there's been points of our business where about 70% of our clients are US based. Mm-hmm. And I've sat on Zoom calls where there's like 16 people on a call.
Yeah.
And there's one person talking and it's the CEO.
That's right.
and everyone else just appears to be a little timid, or when someone does creep their head up and say something, the senior people just kind of like bulldoze over it or shoot it down, and then you just see them go meek and sit on their phone the rest of the call.
That's right.
So like, you're saying that like it's maybe not culturally relevant, or it's not being sewn into society.
Yeah, it's not a part of our orthodoxy. It's not a part of the operating system that governs what it means to be us, you know? And it's these conventions that ultimately govern how we go about our day-to-day lives. It's just what we do around here, you know? That's what culture is for us. It's a governing operating system. And if we change the way we see the world, then we operate in the world differently, and then we get different outcomes. So to kind of go back to the original question, I think that for me, I thought that when someone sort of pushes against your idea, then like it's actually an attack on you.
Yeah, we see it as criticism, or
about me.
Yeah, or they're hating on me.
That's right. You go, I thought the idea was great. What do you mean? What do you mean? What's wrong with you? Like it becomes a personal attack, as opposed to no, I'm not attacking you. I'm attacking the idea. I'm interrogating the idea. You know, we in the States we call it, you know, a crap sandwich. You say, I love this about it. I struggled with this, but it's a really good idea. Crap sandwich, you know?
Yeah.
And that's a way to serve up feedback so that you don't bruise the ego, but you try to kind of get to the idea because of the cultural armor that people have based on what their expectations are of you. But if you're in a place that is far more aggressive, or aggressive is probably the wrong word, they're far more conflict loving, you're going to get much more debate. And that debate gets to better ideas.
Do you think that there's a part of that could be seen as a negative regarding like if someone did have an idea and people criticize it, that they would then quit? Or do you think that also is a cultural thing where it's like people have a healthy appetite for debate in somewhere like Israel, whereas someone like in the United States or in Australia, it's seen as criticism?
Yeah. I did I was working with Anheuser-Busch years ago. This is when I was at Translation. Worked with Anheuser-Busch, and we did this like offsite with Facebook. And
that's a big brand.
Huge brand, right? So we're at Facebook. We're in Menlo's Park at Facebook's headquarters with our clients from Anheuser-Busch. We're all talking about like the power of social and content, et cetera, et cetera. And our client goes, "Hey, put up the Facebook page for Bud Light." And I go, "What? It's about to happen here." Puts it up on the screen, and like everyone just goes to town on it. Like, why did we do that? And that's dumb. And that's blah blah blah. And I'm like seeping into my chair, like, oh my God, what is happening here? For like a good 2 hours, just going in on our lives. We're the social agency for them. We're the agency of record, but we do the social for them. And they're just like cutting the work like to shreds. So when we break for lunch, the client goes to me and is like, "Yo, Marcus, why aren't you talking? Like, you're not weighing in on this conversation." I'm like, "Dude, you basically said my baby is ugly. Like, you just cut everything down." He's like, No. You got to get in there. You got to fight. You got to get in there. I'm like, "Why don't you get in there?" And I go, "No, that is not how I'm wired. That's not how we do things in America, Jack." You know, like he's Argentinian.
Yeah, like I didn't realize this was the UFC.
Exactly. I didn't realize that I was getting punched in the face for 2 hours. Like that's what I signed up for. And he goes, "No, man."
You're like, where's Dana White?
He's like, "This is the debate. Like we need the debate. The debate is good. The debate is good. We need provocation. That was ingrained in the culture of the organization. And that wasn't how my team was built. So we're just in there like just getting pulverized, you know? and what I realized that they're doing that not because they thought the work sucked. They did that because they thought that this kind of pressure on the work would get to better work.
Interesting. So they knew by default, by debating everything and ripping it to shreds, you guys will come back with something better.
That's right. But we didn't see it that way. We saw it as a criticism of our work.
And I think many, I guess, beginner creative workers really take it personally. Like, for example, you know, we have a design team here, we have a copywriting team, we have a web development team. The first time a client rips their work to shreds, they take it really hard.
Gut it.
I'm like, they're like, "I need a sabbatical. I need a couple of days off," you know, and I'm like, "Can I get you some soup?" You know, and it's just a law of the land.
Yeah.
Like, I think when you start working with people in business, especially at the level of, we're talking about here. It's like you have to be willing to have robust conversations and to fight for your ideas.
That's right. There's one of the best one of the best chief creative officers I worked with was at Wyden Kennedy. This guy named Carl. He was the CCO there, global CCO there. This guy was unbelievable. His whole approach to creative ideas, he said, it's like making pancakes, man. You just keep making pancakes. He's like, you make one batch, it's not good, make another. Just make another. Just make another. And the dude was like, he was like a gumball machine of ideas. Like you put a quarter in, you and get an idea. Like he was unbelievable. I've seen this guy work, and it's just mind blowing. But it was a detachment from the ideas and his person. I think this allowed for him to have freedom of creativity.
So he would create something, his batch of pancakes,
Dude.
and go, "That's a batch of pancakes. It's not me. It's just I created
Pancakes.
it." Yeah, and detach.
Pancakes, man. Just make pancakes. And he's like, just make another, man. That was bad. Make another. And just keep making. You just keep making pancakes. And for him, and by the way, the pancakes were great. Like his ideas were really, really, really good. I mean,
Like Michelin star pancakes.
Brilliant. Carl is a monster. And what I thought was so awesome about working with him, said, I'm running strategy. He's running creative. The MD of the New York office, he used to have my job, a guy named Neil, who was just brilliant. And working with those guys as a trio was like really, really awesome to do. But Carl would be like, you write it, dude. Like I think I had this idea, like, rough idea, Carl make magic. He'd go, no, write the script, Marcus. I go, I'm not a copywriter. Just write it. You got it. You got it. Because for him, it's all pancakes. And he's like, you write it. Like, just give it a shot. And if someone goes, it's a little burnt on the side, we cut the sides. And the next batch will be better. And it's like that detachment from the work and his identity just allowed for a level of creative freedom that I think that many of us don't have.
Do you think that when someone's creating an idea, you're saying, okay, part of the equation is you have to debate the idea.
Yes.
And if you were to say, what are the I guess optics of debating, and at what point is it healthy, and at what point is it like that's too much?
Say more.
So okay, if you take the concept of debating, I understand it is like one's ability to take a subject matter, to challenge it in a way that exposes its weaknesses.
Sure. Yep.
That then might garner a response, and then you go back and forth.
Yeah.
It's not just one exchange. I understand a debate is like back and forth until it's like everything's been said.
Yeah.
Everything's on the table. We've looked at all the optics, all the scenarios, the good, the bad, the ugly, the opportunities, the risks, the rewards. Yep. Everything's out.
Yep.
Do we still like the idea?
Yeah. So I think of it this way. I think about comedians. You know what comedians do? They make a whole bunch of bits, and then there's like little, jokes. There are jokes written out, and then they go to small little comedy clubs and just try it out. They try it on the market. Like they laugh. I like that one. That's good.
And the market debates.
Exactly. Like that the discourse between the way the market responds in that small little setting is a signal to them to go, okay, cool, I'm gonna try that, not that, not that. And honestly, that's what I do. Anytime I put together a new talk, I'm just trying things. Like say 80% of the talk, I kind of know what I'm gonna do. 20%, I'm always gonna try something new. Always, just to see how it works. When I try to see people sit up in their seat and I go, oh, that's a thing. Or if I give it and like no one responds, I go, that's not a thing. I mean, and it's this. I mean,
so you're just reading signals, and you're like, I'll take that signal as a yes, and these three as a no, and that's another. It's like Matthew McConaughey's book, Green Light.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's discourse. Like that is the discourse. In companies, the discourse happens in the boardroom. When we are creating things in the marketplace, the discourse is between us and the audience. Like you try something, you do it. Like for you, you're making content. You're making pancakes. You know what I mean? Like if the one you posted on Monday doesn't hit, maybe Tuesday's gonna hit, or maybe Wednesday's gonna hit, or maybe you got those all going. Then Friday, boom! Like You're just putting them in there. You're putting in the world to see how the world responds, and you're constantly iterating along the way, constantly iterating.
And I think comedy is a good example of that because I
Yeah.
remember being backstage in the green room here in Sydney, and Andrew Schultz was on stage, and I know some of the guys on his crew, and this is before I met him. And the second he got off stage, his whole crew went into a back room. I wasn't a part of it, but they went in there to debate
Yep.
what went well,
Yep.
what flopped, where he can improve. Body language, tonality,
Yep.
eye contact, timing, pace, everything.
Yep.
The second he gets off stage, they're debating.
But that's the move. I mean, that is the move. Kobe Bryant used to say he just watched film. He would watch film religiously, constantly watching film of
So
other
when you're
people
saying film,
play.
like playbacks of games,
Exactly,
right?
yes.
Yeah,
Of
yeah.
how he played, how other people played, constantly over and over and over and over again. It's this iterative approach to optimization that gets us better. And many times we don't have film, so we need people in real time telling us this, that, and the third. We've talked about this before because we both love Kanye West. Remember this conversation we had before some years ago. I think Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy is one of the best albums ever made.
I would agree.
This is why we're friends.
I would agree.
I remember that conversation we had about this.
Many people would debate this,
Yes.
and you can hit us in the comment section, but I would agree. To me, it felt like the most prolific and also like raw expression of how he felt.
Exactly. And that album, Kanye changed the way that he went about creativity. See, Kanye used to like write his own stuff, do his own things, all about him, and he got writers come in to help him with it. But for My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, he went to Hawaii and he brought in everybody, came to Hawaii. They were all together in sync. They'd wake up, they eat breakfast, they go work out. Then all they talked about was music. They go in the studio. There were rules of how to operate in the studio, and everyone just adding a little bit here, a little bit there. And Kanye's job was to be the curator of it all. He went from being Kanye the artist to Kanye the creative director, taking this, that, and the third, and putting the pieces together. And like the conversations that were happening over dinner, or over lunch, while they're playing basketball, while they're lifting weights, all these things go into coming with a new product that no one would have made by themselves individually. And I think that when it comes to creativity, whether you're a marketer, whether you're a content creator, whether you're a musician, whatever the case may be, whatever your canvas is, it's this back and forth that helps us get to better things. And I think about my relationship with my editor, she was just really, really good at pushing this way, pushing that way, and giving me the freedom to express, but also pulling me out of rabbit holes and telling me to go deeper in other places.
If we take all of that, which you just contextualized so beautifully, and we take it to the canvas of business.
Yeah.
Now, I'm trying to understand it, and again, look at this as a student,
Sure.
not as a master. By no means do I feel like I've mastered business. I'm still very
None of
much
us have.
in my mind. I'm like, dude, there's so much I don't know, right?
Yeah.
If you're looking at business and you're going from, I guess, grassroots startup, bare knuckling it and trying to bootstrap something from the ground up.
Yeah.
Would you say that it's potentially monumentally difficult because they're not yet in a ecosystem where they're supported and being challenged by the right people?
So I think that it depends on the company. When you think about like big CPG, big companies, they operate like a year out. Like they're planning for 2026 right now. We're going to 2025. They're already planning for 2026. They're just so far ahead in their lead times, so they don't get a chance to have discourse with the market very much. They go, boom, we have a big release, and now the market's going to weigh in. And maybe they did some market research to get some input, but they're not having great discourse. So much of the discourse is happening between them and their boardrooms and their partners, their agency partners. They're like, I think it's that, I think it's this. That's how it kind of happens. The smarter ones may tease things in social to get a sense of like how.
Like tissue test it. Let's see how the market reacts. Let's
Exactly.
debate a little bit.
Before we do a big launch. But in many cases, because the timelines are so long, they don't get a chance to do that. I think for scrappier companies, you have a lot more tolerance, a lot more generosity, and you could go. We don't need to do a big launch. We can the new product can come out in a week, and we could test it out with some people now. We can do beta tests now, and the risk is not as great as the reward would be. And therefore you have a level of grace that like big companies don't have.
Right. So someone who's like running a smaller operation, you're saying that they can throw the dice a little more aggressively. They can test a lot more frequently because they don't have the weight of like, let's just say, it's the concept of maybe you have a tinny and like some oars and you can like go wherever you want.
What's a tinny?
A tinny is like a little boat.
Okay, cool.
Okay, yeah, sorry, man. I did say smashing tinnies earlier, which means beer. No. So I'm not talking about beer again.
Yeah.
But we're talking about like being in a like a rowboat.
Yeah.
Let's just say a small business is a rowboat, and a big corporate enterprise, like you're talking about, is like a giant, oil rigger.
Yeah.
Right. And it's so difficult for the big oil ship to turn.
That's right.
Whereas if you're in a small company, you can turn quickly.
That's
You
right.
can go that way super easily.
That's the benefit. I when I talk to entrepreneurs, and they see examples like Nike and McDonald's and Apple, they go, I can never be that. Like that doesn't appeal to me or doesn't apply to me. And I go, well, they started where you are at one point.
That's what people forget, right? Nike, Phil Knight, once upon a time, was a small disruptive startup.
He was making his sneakers with a waffle iron, literally making sneakers with a waffle iron. Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak were in a garage. Like everyone starts with no fans, no listeners, no subscribers. Everyone starts that way, no customers. We all start that way, and then we grow to something else. The benefit of not being so big is that you can be more agile. You can move fast. Not only that, like you can fail and not many people know. If Nike fails, we're talking about it, i.e., everything in the headlines.
Yeah, we were talking
Nike.
about this earlier. You were saying that they're getting punched in the face right now.
That's right. That's right.
Why do you think? Okay, back to the boat concept. Like, why do you think right now Nike's not doing well? Do you think there's so many guys out there on rowboats right now that are just like absolutely swarming in on the market?
Well, I think Nike made a few mistakes. I think they read the tea leaves wrong. They saw during COVID.
What is it? Let's predict the market.
They saw during COVID that people weren't going to stores to buy. You go, yeah, because we were locked at home. So their online commerce was through the roof. They saw the margins there to go, let's just do more of this. So they started to cut out the middleman. They cut out the retailer. So then when people started going back to malls, back to stores, Nike wasn't there.
And by cutting out the retailer, the way I understand it is they started to, I guess, tear up their partnerships with people that had relationships with for decades.
That's right.
Now, like, you can't have our shoes anymore.
No, so we're going to sell them direct because we get more margins that way. But that's the benefit of having a retailer, is that they have traffic. Fancy that.
Maybe they'll take a photo of the shoe and buy it on the website.
And not only that, but they were looking at what people are already buying and they were just making more of it. They didn't understand sneaker culture. That if everyone's rocking the shoes, I don't want them anymore. If everyone has the Jordan 3s, you go, oh man, the Jordan 3s aren't that, they don't feel that special anymore. There has to be this level of enough that people know what they are and they're cool, but not enough that everybody has them. I mean, there was a time when Yeezys were like the biggest sneakers there are.
I remember going into the gym. I worked at World Gym. You'd walk on the floor at 6 o'clock and all you would see was Yeezys.
That's right. That's right. And like Yeezys were a thing.
Cultural phenomena.
But then, fast forward a few years later, and like you see grandpas wearing Yeezys. You go, oh man, oh no, I think we're done here.
Yeah.
I mean, Nike misread that, and the stories they were telling. They weren't telling stories about every human body is an athlete, and the combination of those factors did them in. While you have these entrants in like On sneakers and New Balance, like they just start to like go, oh, I'm just going to attack. These guys are weak. We're going to start attacking now, and it worked out really well for them, unfortunately. For Nike.
Would you say that like the discourse there is maybe maybe not arrogance, but maybe, hey, we got this recipe figured out, and there's no need to debate anymore. There's no need to really exercise, I guess, the same robust conversations that got us here.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of what do the numbers say. The numbers say people are buying our sneakers more than ever. This is great. Awesome, And I think in the short term, it tells us a story about right now, but we have to always look at it in the long term. Right? We had to look at it because things happen in two different time horizons. And when we fail to see it that way, it puts us in a very bad situation.
Now, to put culture together,
Yeah.
and to, I guess, everything we're talking about here with like business and debate and like discourse and understanding the market and knowing what it wants and knowing not how to get pulverized like Nike is. When you look at the word culture, it's, I guess, in many aspects, my mentor, Chris Doe, he says there's things that he calls a briefcase word. And a briefcase word is a word that means too many things.
Sure.
It can be too intangible.
Sure.
And it can have 1,000 definitions.
Yeah.
When you take culture and you add your definition to it, the way you see it today,
Yeah.
like how do you define what it is?
Yeah.
And then the second part of that question is like, how can I then learn how to apply it to my business?
Yeah. So well stated. I think about culture through a sociological lens, particularly through a lens, a Durkheimian lens. Emil Durkheim talks about culture.
What was that?
Emil Durkheim.
Okay.
He's one of the founding fathers of sociology. You got Marx, Durkheim, and Weber. Emil Durkheim talks about culture as a system of conventions and expectations that demarcate who we are and govern what people like us.
Conventions and expectations.
Exactly. They're characteristics. They're elements of what it means to be us.
So when you say conventions, can you just
break
down what you mean by that?
Yeah, so the conventions are the artifacts, what we wear, what we don.
Okay.
The language that we use, right? That for
We're just going to raw dog it.
Australians, thongs are flip-flops. But in the States, thongs are the underwear that goes up your butt, right? This is a convention.
Yeah.
The language you use, right? If a black cat crosses your path in the States, it's bad luck. In Japan, it's good luck, right? Like these conventions are what is acceptable and what is expected of people like us, right? So it's all about us as our identity, who we are, and because of who we are, we see the world a certain way. There's truths that we hold. That's why for some, a rug is decor, for others, souvenir, and for some, it's a place of worship. Which one is it? It's all those things, depending on who you are and how you see the world. And because of how you see the world, you therefore engage in the world accordingly. So if a rug is a place of worship for you, you treat it with some sacredcy, right? But if a rug is decor, you put your feet on it, right? And because of how we see the world, we navigate the world accordingly, express ourselves accordingly through shared work, literature, film, television, pottery, poetry, and brands and branded products. The alchemy of these systems or systems of systems make up our culture. And when you think of culture that way, you go, oh, I got it. Okay, cool. So when we talk about sneakerheads, they have expectations of what it means to be a sneakerhead. If you talk about runners, there's expectations of what it means to be a runner. If you're into cosplay, there's expectations. They are expectations.
There's an etiquette. There's a resonance, an aura.
That's right.
A frequency, a shared sense of belonging.
People like me do something like this, and therefore I do it because that's what's expected of people like me. And if you think of culture in that sense, you go, oh, okay, great. So who do I want to engage? What are their cultural conventions? What are their beliefs, their artifacts, behaviors, language, cultural production? And we'll engage them accordingly. It takes what is esoteric and omnipresent and abstract culture, like you say, briefcase word, and it makes it extremely concrete. And in doing so, we look at people in different ways now. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you. That was playing.
That was a nice sneeze.
Yeah.
So then, okay, how do we, let's start to move to translate that over to like, how do I apply that? How do I make that useful for me? So like, I guess what you're saying with Nike, let's just say, someone in their marketing department's looking at the numbers on the screen and going, holy crap, e-commerce is going wild right now. How do we capitalize on this? Let's pump the brakes on retail and get more of this.
Right.
That's great for Nike. It's great for the investors. Everyone's gonna be happy. We're gonna crush it.
And I would say that is a economic decision that has not been looked at through a cultural lens.
So they've looked at it economically, they've looked at the numbers.
Yep.
And oftentimes you'll sit with a lot of people in business and they're looking at the numbers. And I think if you were to criticize today's day and age of advertising, it's a lot of number conversations.
100%.
It's like, oh, what's the ROI? What's the ROAS?
Yep.
What's the conversion rate? Da 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 da. Like that seems to be where everyone's mind is right now when they think of advertising.
Yes.
I'm seeing this the pendulum swing back the other way, because it's like, I think people are getting so despondent to just the number conversation. Both A, it's not exciting for the business owner to talk about all the time, and B, the numbers don't tell you everything. So you're saying, let's put a limelight on the cultural piece in tandem with the numbers.
That's right.
And so would you say that most businesses are oversimplifying how they approach scaling their companies?
Well, I would say that many businesses look at the numbers, which tells an economic story without the intimacy of the cultural story.
So how does one identify the cultural opportunity in front of their company?
It requires tremendous intimacy. You got to be close to it. So like you may say, hey, these colorways of these dunks are through the roof. Let's pump out more. And you go, whoa, 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 you can't do that. Well, what do you mean? People want it. Clearly there's a demand for it. Let's meet the demand with the supply. And you go, dude, because in sneaker culture, if too many people have the colorway, then it's whack. Yo,
it's like the pandas. Because I remember I had a cupboard full of Nikes.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, the pandas are kind of cool. And I put them on, and then everyone's wearing them. I'm like, I don't want to wear them anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So to understand that threshold where it's enough that people know it, but not too much that it feels saturated, you got to be close to it. And I think that when we rely only on the quantitative, we miss the qualitative, which requires a level of intimacy.
Can you add definitions to those? Because these are big concepts, quantitative and qualitative.
Yes.
Just for the audience.
The quantitative are the numbers. Like, what does the numbers say? The numbers say that there's great demand for these sneakers. People are paying more money. They're going to the secondary market, to the StockX's of the world to get these sneakers in this colorway. They want it. Let's put more in the marketplace. Put more in the marketplace. Because for Nike doesn't realize the value from the second market unless they go through their own app, sneaker app. But when StockX sells Nike sneakers, Nike doesn't realize any of that money. So they're like, well, let's just put more in the marketplace. Great.
It's like they're making our money. Yeah.
Put more in the marketplace. That's what the quantitative numbers would say. The qualitative numbers would say, oh, dude, you got to stop. Too much. Great example.
Because just to jump on that for a moment, just to make a distinction, because it's like if they make too many of them, it's not cool anymore, it's whack, then therefore people stop buying them.
That's right.
Which means you lose.
That's right.
You know, if you do too many, you lose.
Yep.
But if you stop selling them, you can just drop a new colorway and win.
Which requires innovation, which I think another thing that Nike was struggling with. So look at this through the lens of music. In the early 2000s, the Neptunes, this Pharrell Williams and Chad Hugo, the production team, the Neptunes, murdering the game. Like murdering the game. I think in the States, they had like 6 of the top 10 songs in Billboards, like for years, like for a good 2-3 year run. And for some reason, Pharrell and Chad completely switched their sound. Completely. Different drums, they don't do the kind of
there was
sound
an era there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There was a Neptune sound. They completely changed it. And people are like, why? Pharrell, what are you doing? Why? And he's like, you're so in demand. And he was like, you have to leave before people are tired of you. Like you had to change it up when people still want you.
Goosebumps, man.
Seriously, you had to change it up when people still want you, not when they're tired of you. But the only way to know that is to be close enough to the street to know it. And I think that when you are in your ivory tower, when you're in your boardroom, and your only proximity to people is through what the quantitative numbers are telling you, you're going to miss it.
So the idea of intimacy, which I love, how does one become more intimate with their audience to pick up on these concepts, these subtle debates the market's throwing at them?
So this is where culture enters the building, because what we're essentially saying is, how do we get closer to culture? How do we get closer to the artifacts, behaviors, language, and cultural production, the beliefs of these people? And the only way to study culture is through ethnographic means.
Can you define
So
ethnographic?
ethnographies are when we immerse ourselves in the cultural contexts of people. So like if I want to know about cosplayers, I'm gonna go to Comic-Con. I'm gonna watch them, dress up like them, eat what they eat, talk where they go, go where they go, I'm gonna be one of them. I'm gonna go native, essentially. And I'm gonna like live life like them to understand who they are. This is how anthropologists study people that we don't know, right? Like the first ethnography were done in the 1700s. I think it's Sir Frederick Mueller wanted to know more about Serbians. So he took an expedition and they went to Serbia for Siberia. Sorry, not Serbians, Siberia. He went to Siberia for 10 years to understand what it means to be these people and live like these people. You immerse yourself in the spaces, the cultural places where they occupy. You watch them, you eat with them, you be them, you become them, and you learn about them.
So the way we find intimacy with our market is through immersion.
Exactly. Ethnographic undertakings. You either do a field ethnography where I go there, live, become one of them, or you do a netnography, an online ethnography, where you use social platforms as a proxy to observe them and unobtrusively and translate meaning.
And I guess one could do that through looking at comments, looking at chatter on
right.
Reddit or StockX or what
My
have you.
entire doctoral dissertation was all Reddit data.
Really?
All of it.
All of it?
All of it. It was like, I think I had 12.5 million lines of discussions from 7 different
Jesus.
subreddits over 3 years. That's what I analyzed.
So you were actually like scrolling through Reddit.
Scraped Reddit through 7 different subreddits about hip hop related subreddits that talked about 12 specific brands. And in that discourse, I'm watching these people go back and forth, just talking. It's like someone being a fly on the wall, observing how we come up with words, things that we say, what we do, how we behave. And you go, oh, I know what's happening here.
So 2 co-brand strategists, someone sitting on the wall like, oh, that's what they are interested in.
It's exactly. It's essentially that.
They're obsessed with Nike.
Oh, Apple, eh? And the thing is that like when you observe people, you find out a lot.
I would agree with that. And through this, like, and again, it's hard to proxy culture, right? Because one could go on the internet. Like I remember before I went to Mexico City, I was like, oh, okay, let me just do a little bit of research about Mexico and know what I'm in for. And then I get off the plane, I'm like, oh, this is what it's like to be Spanish.
That's right.
We don't have conversations at a distance. We're like this.
Really close. You hug, you get really close. And,
everyone's kissing me on the cheek. This is rad.
And like you can't pick that up from Google.
No.
It's like you got to be there. You got to be in it.
Or read a lot of Reddit.
Read a lot of Reddit, exactly. Or you hear people talk about it. And I think it's that level of proximity where things get illuminated. We go back to comedians. They know this very well. Comedians just watch people. They do people watching. They watch people go, oh, that's weird. That's odd. She did that. He did that. Okay, this is a thing. And then they start applying theory to why this is happening. And then they go on stage and go, you ever notice every time you go to the mall, you do X, Y, and Z? We go, I totally do that. Of course. They have observed human behavior, pulled out some causality-based theory to describe what was happening, and said all the truth, but told it slant, like Emily Dickinson would say. And as a result, it felt more hooky.
So sitting with this and thinking to ourselves, okay, let's just say, those that are listening work in branding or marketing or advertising or run a company.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just say I'm paying close attention to my target market.
Yep.
And I'm trying to be intimate. I'm trying to immerse myself in the culture and understand what's happening. What are some things that they should be looking for? Like, how do you know you're observing culture or like something that's irrelevant?
Yeah. I say this, when you're observing people, you're trying to find the familiar in the strange. It's almost like what we started off with, the game we started off with. You gave me a phrase and go, like, what does it feel like? What do you think it means? Right? And as you say something, I'm trying to relate to it based on things that I know. Right? I'm trying to find the familiar in the strange to make sense of it. That's how it is with us. When we're watching people, we're in a new country or a new place, we're going, all right, they talk like this. Okay, now I know how to act. The other way to do this is to find the strange and the familiar. We're observing people who are like us, things that we take for granted that ends up sort of triangulating how we make sense of the world. I think scientists refer to it as nose blindness.
Nose blindness.
Yeah, where like you don't know that your house stinks
Oh.
until someone comes in and go, "What's that smell?" And
Like,
go,
what are you
do
talking
mean?
about?
What do
Yeah.
you mean? You're like, you don't smell that? What are you talking about? Right? We become blind to what is our everyday.
Yeah.
And this is why the social sciences are so illuminating, but also frustrating because we think we know us. We think we know everything about us. So much so that when someone calls it out to us, we go, oh, I knew that all along, which is the I know it all along bias, right? The obvious isn't obvious till someone points it out to you. And
So someone walks in the room and they're like,
What
it smells like dude in here.
that's right. You go,
Yeah.
what do you mean? You're like, yeah, it's a little musty, isn't it? Right? That's what we do as researchers who study culture. We're observing the thing and go, oh, you notice that they do this instead of that? Interesting. And we adapt to it. Talk about this idea, this hedonic treadmill we talked about earlier. We adapt to it very quickly. We like anyone who travels internationally knows this. As soon as you get off the plane and you go, that's how they greet. Okay, I gotta do this thing so that I don't offend anyone. I do this thing so I'm like one of them. That's what we have to do as researchers, observe what people like them do.
When you're thinking of this concept of looking for the familiar and the weird, or the weird and the familiar, can you think of an example of a brand right now, maybe other than Nike or some of these other big names, but that have a really good dial on culture?
Yep. I'd say McDonald's. Full
Really?
stop. Oh, definitely. I write about this in the book. I'm biased. I worked on McDonald's when I was at Wyden, and I work with them now as a professor in residence. McDonald's came to Wyden Kennedy in 2019 with a big problem. They like in the States, they were not doing well. I mean, like it was just a decline. And actually in 2014, they were voted the most hated company in the country.
Really?
It was bad. It was bad. And the team goes, yeah,
That's a
people
great
definitely
trophy.
hate you.
Yeah.
Because McDonald's is basically the punching bag for everything wrong with the American diet. But people definitely hate you, but 68 million people show up at your door every single day. That's a lot of love. Why don't you focus on them? McDonald's goes, yeah, I think you're right. And the thing is, McDonald's didn't know them very well. They knew their credit card data, right? But they didn't know them as human beings, these fans, very, very well. People who are willing to self-identify as a fan of McDonald's, even though it came with a lot of vitriol. So the team did an ethnography. Started in Chicago, drove through the heartland of the country, talking to real-life human beings who self-identify as fans of McDonald's. They transcend demography, different age, different race, different gender, different household income, different education, different geography, clearly, because they lived in different places in the country. Excuse me. And what they found was a set of fan truths that were both specific, social, and special to what it means to be a fan of McDonald's. Some of these truths may ring true for you. For instance, your friend will ask for a fry, even though they say they didn't want any fries. It's a fan truth. Like you go, you want anything? I'm all good. You get your fry, you're like, let me get a fry. Whoa, 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 whoa. You said you didn't want nothing. Fan truth, right? Is there anybody out there who doesn't eat the cheese stuck to the wrapper? If you don't, you're a monster. That cheese is great, right? And like we saw all these lists of fan truths, all these fan truths that the team put in a book they called the Book of Fan Truths. There was one truth that was more powerful than any of them, and it was this. No matter how big, how famous you are, everyone has an order. Everyone has a McDonald's order.
That's true.
No matter how big, how famous you
Their
are,
go-to
everyone has an
meal.
order. Go-to meal. So the team decided to engage fans through famous orders. So we did a spot. We had like Kim Kardashian's order, Kanye West's order, Magic Johnson, Whoopi Goldberg, all these people. And then decided to partner with a famous person to make their order available by name. And that was Travis Scott. And we made his order called the Cactus Jack, which is a double cheese, a cheeseburger with bacon, shredded lettuce, barbecue sauce, and a Sprite. Same order he's been ordering since he was a kid in Houston. We made that order available. And the first week, we broke the supply chain of Quarter Pounder ingredients. People were so ravenous about the campaign, they were stealing posters off the wall when the restaurants closed.
Wow.
And in the 4 weeks the campaign ran, doubled the sale of Quarter Pounders, added $50 million in incremental revenue, and Wall Street added $10 billion to McDonald's market cap. Unbelievable. So from there, we partnered with J Balvin with his famous order. Then we partnered with BTS, the K-pop superstars. Then He partnered with Sweetie, Southern rapper, partnered with Mariah Carey, partnered with Cardi B and Offset. And like McDonald's saw for 4 years, year over year, double-digit growth for 4 years. These products are all the same. No new products. The same products, just framed through a cultural lens based on the brand's intimacy with fans. And they've taken that idea and lateralized it all across the globe. Right? Even here in Australia, last year they did a partnership with Kid Leroy.
Yeah, I saw that. I remember like going through the drive-through at McDonald's and going, the Kid Leroy, like why is he partnered with McDonald's? And I was like, I remember ordering his meal.
That's right.
I was like, I'll try it.
That's right. And and the same thing we saw in the States is the same thing we saw here in Australia, just like frenzy, right? This is the brand not changing its products at all. Literally the exact same products. You could have ordered the Kid Leroy a month before, the day before the campaign came out. It's not by the name Kid Leroy. But as soon as you frame it through a cultural lens based on what's true of these fans, people consume. That's really, really powerful. And it's completely changed McDonald's business. McDonald's business is that we engage fans like fans. We don't act like a corporation talking to customers. Fan engaged with fans.
So and I think this is a phenomenal example. Like Goosebumps, like now that makes a tremendous amount of sense of like why McDonald's has really turned up the heat when it comes to branding and marketing. For someone who's like, let's just say, yeah, that's great. That's McDonald's. They got the budget to do that.
Yeah.
How do I apply that to what I'm doing in the event where like maybe I don't have a lot of fans or I'm still just trying to get my legs. I'm trying to get customers.
Yeah. That to me, I think is the cop out.
Okay.
That like, I don't have the big budgets at McDonald's. McDonald's had big budgets forever, but they were still losing. I mean, McDonald's had big budgets in 2014 when they were called the most hated company in the country. Like big budgets don't win you anything but media weight.
So why is it a cop out and what can they do about it?
So the cop out is that I don't have the budgets, I can't do that. And you go, no. The same rules still apply. Same rules still apply.
So the market doesn't care about your feelings, about your budget. It's the same rules for everyone.
Exactly. The hard part is that McDonald's can turn on the media quickly. You have to go door to door. But just like we said earlier, if McDonald's fails, it's much more conspicuous. But
if you fail, nobody cares.
Seriously, like I mean, there's consequences, positive and negative, always trade-offs. So for a small company who doesn't have a bunch of fans, I go, great, engage the fans you do have and activate them to go tell other people. And then they'll go tell other people, and so on, 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 and so on. Artists, I mean, we go back to artists again. Artists know this very well, especially musicians, comedians too. They go, I have to win fans every night that I'm on stage. Every night. If I'm a new artist, I go to the smallest pub, little bar, no one's there. I got to win this thing over. If I can convert one today, convert one the next day, over time I build, over time, more and more and more. That's how you got to be with your brand.
So many people in business try to go, but I want to go straight to the Netflix special. I want to go straight to having the whole collection. Well, I can't do that because, you have all the advantages and I don't. And you're saying that there's no excuses.
You 100%. I love that analogy. It's, man, like there are no elevators in life. You take the stairs. For some people, they're overnight successes, but it is so rare relative to the rest of us. You got to take the stairs. You don't get the whole deck right away. You get it card by card by card. McDonald's has been in business for decades.
They got holographic everything.
They've been building cards, stacking cards, and what you see is the result of that. It's like going to the gym, work out for a day, and then go, "Where's my six pack?" It doesn't work that way. Like you got to keep going.
Like take the stairs, bitch.
Over time.
Yeah.
And then you get it. You don't like get on the scale after one day at the gym and go, "That failed. I'm done." And then you keep going. I think the same thing goes with business. There are times that I've created content. I'm like, yo, this video is the one. Oh, this is going to murder. And it gets no engagements. I go, what in the world happened here? And then there's one that I'm like, well, this is the throwaway. And it gets tons of engagement. I go, what's going on? Right? The market is talking to you. And you take the feedback and you continue to iterate to make it better. And you do it day over day, stage after stage, product release after product release. For the big guys and the small guys, it is the exact same game. It's like basketball. NBA basketball plays by the same basic rules as WNBA and the same basic rules as NCAA basketball. Different contexts, the rules are a little bit different, but it is still the same game. The same thing goes for the big brands and the small ones. It's the same game. We are trying to get people to move. We're trying to get people to adopt behavior, and we invest in these vessels of meanings that we call brands to conjure up thoughts and feelings in the hearts and minds of people to increase their likelihood of moving. And the way people make meaning, the way people translate the world is through their cultural lenses, through their cultural frames. And therefore, we have to understand how they make meaning so we can make meaning in a way that's congruent with them.
And I think you're saying essentially those who are in business, need to shift perspectives or be willing to shift perspectives,
Yep.
or like you said, go on an expedition and go learn.
Yep. So think about this. How many followers do you have on Instagram?
Instagram, 631,000.
Yes. When you were making content when you had 6 followers, is there a very big difference between the way you make content now and then?
I'd say technically yes. I'd say mindset, it's about the same.
Exactly. Same game. You've got better skills. You got a better shorthand. You have a better understanding of what's going to work in the market, but you're still doing the same thing. You're still playing the same game. You just play better.
It's still Instagram. It's still the same planet.
You still got to break through. you still have to do all those things. You just have better skills to do it, but you're still doing the same thing. And when you get to 1 million followers, you'll be doing the same thing as well. You still got to break through.
And just to add a caveat here, would you say that people are trying to rush this process?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've heard someone came to me and says, I want to teach one day. I really want to be a professor one day. I go, great, start now. They go, no, like I'm working right now and I got young kids. And once all that's done, then I'm like, oh, it's going to be over by that time. Dude, you got to start right now. You got to start when it's hard. I started teaching 12 years ago, and I was teaching for free. I was there was nothing glamorous, zero glamour at all. I did that work for a long time, and overtime for myself at the University of Michigan. But it took a lot to get there. You don't just go, I want to do this now. I'm going to do it. No. You start now. And you build over time.
Start when it's hard.
Yeah.
That really resonates. And there's no such thing in time. There's no such thing in business as the perfect time.
Never, ever. Nothing in life as the perfect time. There's a book called Die Empty. And it has one clear premise. And I love this idea. In fact, this has sort of been my mantra since COVID. Is that the most expensive real estate on the planet is the graveyard. Because that's where ideas went that never got made.
Whoa.
Songs never got recorded. Movies never got produced. Books never got written. Just companies never got
dead
started.
Potential.
Everybody just waiting for the right time. Dude, we are on borrowed time. I had a friend of mine who passed early in COVID, March 24th, a guy named Marlo Stoudemire. This guy had everything going for him, man. This guy is everything going for him. Family, business doing well, so much clout in the city. He was the guy. And he passed from COVID. And when I heard he died, immediately I just thought, it's dude, there is no perfect time. You have to do it now. You do it when it's hard because it's never going to be easy. There's always going to be an excuse why not to do it. Do it when it's hard.
Goosebumps, man. And I think you're right. So many times people just, no matter how it's framed, things never get easier.
I think about your story. right? I think your story, you went to go see Gary Vaynerchuk, right?
Yeah.
Didn't have very much money, didn't have nothing going for you. You feel like you were on a dead end. And you were like, I'm going to start this thing. You had every reason why not to do this. Every reason. But you're like, I'm going to do it while it's hard. Now look at us.
Yeah, you can
Look
have
where we are.
You can have 1,000 excuses, or you can have one reason.
Absolutely.
One is worth more than the other.
Absolutely.
In conclusion, with everything that you're doing now and intend to do, how do you want to be remembered?
Oh man, that's a good one. Honestly, I feel like a part of me wants to say, I want to be remembered as the person who helped people be great. But then being really, really honest, I want to be remembered as Georgia and Ivy's father. Because I think that they're going to be great.
Beautiful, man. Beautiful. I connect with that.
Yeah.
I can really relate. I got a daughter.
Yeah, you know
I feel that.
Yeah.
It's something different, you know? What's a quote or a mantra that you've carried with you on your entire journey that you wished everyone listening to this would immediately implement? Take your time.
Die Empty's been the one I've been on, but I think the one that's been the longest, the one that's sat with me the longest. Probably two things, if I can give you two. One is like more sort of philosophical, and the other was much more practical. The first is the quote that who you are is God's gift to you, but who you become is your gift to God. Right? So it's like
Deep.
where you go, like what you manifest, that is like your way of praising, your way of blessing God. The other one is much more practical, and this is a Steve Jobs quote. And I'm going to paraphrase it, but he essentially says this, that if you look at everything around you, it was made by someone no more smarter than you are. Average person. If that be the case, what's keeping you from making a dent in the world?
That brings it down to earth.
100%. It's like an average person made these things. And we go, well, why can't I do that?
Yeah. I mean, if Australians can make Wi-Fi, like what can't you do?
I mean,
We made Wi-Fi. Like it's pretty good.
There's some guys in the desert in Israel made firewall.
Yeah.
What's keeping you?
Yeah.
And I think when you think of it that way, you go, oh, yeah, why not? Why not?
Why not me?
Yeah, exactly.
If not you, who?
100%.
When you wake up in the morning, what's something unique that you do that keeps you fired up?
Oh, something unique that I do. I don't know if it's something I do, but something I definitely think about. Well, the first thing I do when I wake up, I work right away.
Same.
Right away. Like, it was interesting. I found myself maybe a year ago feeling like I wasn't productive like I used to be. I used to be like a night owl. Like, I would stay up super late at night. The kids go to bed like around 8, maybe 9 on the late side. My wife go to bed like an hour after that. So 10 o'clock, 10 to 2, man, I would be flying. Like, I'm like, the house is quiet. It's just me going to work. But then, like, I realized like a year ago, I just wasn't productive at night anymore. I'd sit at the 4 hours goes by and I've done nothing. And I was like, I need to change this. So I wired my body to wake up at 5 in the morning. So I wake up at 5 in the morning, no matter where I am. Like even here, I'm wake up at 5 in the morning and I work right away. Immediately, I jump right into work. I think I am.
You don't make coffee or anything. You just
I don't drink coffee.
straight on the laptop.
Straight up, man. Like right away. I wake up, quick prayer, go right to it.
Dude, that's why I call raw dogging it. You know what I mean? Like you don't even get dressed yet. You're like, I'm immediately.
And tell you,
like strap your laptop to your chest the second you wake up. Dude.
The thing that gets me fired up though is that I want to be great.
Yeah.
I want to be dope, and I feel like I'm always on the cusp of it. Like, I feel like, man, it's like right. I can see it. It's like I can see it. I just got to do it. And I wake up to that like every day. I'm like,
so you have a visceral feeling that you're on the edge.
I do.
How long
Always.
have you had that?
Forever. Forever. I mean, even at like
is it like something your mama said to you? Like,
no. I don't know if it's just like, I don't know if it's naivete. I don't know what it is, but I always feel like it's right there. It's like right there. Even like for the culture, I feel like we're just starting to hit our stride. It's like
man, I
right
love
there.
that.
It's right there.
How good is that feeling when you're like, it's about to happen?
I don't know if it ever.
I feel like I've been telling my team for like 5 years something big's about to happen. And everyone's like, what? And I'm like, I don't know.
I don't know what's gonna happen.
It's gonna be big.
I mean,
yeah.
and I think that to me, that just really gets me going because like this might be the day. This might be the day. You never know. This might be the day.
Dude, I love how like almost childlike that is, but in the best way possible.
I feel like you've got to have that level of, delusion is probably too strong of a word, but you got to have that level of faith.
Yeah.
The scripture talks about faith as the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And that like you stepped out, like I don't know what's there, but I'm gonna step out anyway. that is a remarkable thing to do. We're always looking for evidence that a thing is there before we do it. To go like, no, I'm gonna start a company. I'm gonna start an agency. And I'm sure people were like, who do you think you are to start this thing? What agency you work at beforehand? Never worked at one before. Who do you think you are? Like there's a boldness that comes from that. And I think that those who are willing to, we talked about earlier, sort of push against the orthodoxies and go, no, I think I'm gonna do this. And be committed to it, man, that is commendable.
I saw a quote from Denzel Washington yesterday.
He's the best.
He's just a dude, just an absolute murderer.
Yeah, he is.
And he said, anxiety is faith dissolving.
A word. That is a word. And that is true. That is true.
And the way I interpreted that was like, you have to have faith. And some would say, well, faith is a weak word. And I'm like, depends how you feel and think about it.
Yeah.
And for many of, the listeners here, whether you believe in God or some other deity or what have you, I think if you have genuine faith that something can happen and you're slightly delusional about it,
sure,
and you're giving your power to it,
yeah,
in many ways it can, in my personal experience, help remedy the feeling of anxiety.
That's right. That's right. The scripture would say faith and fear can't coexist. You can't have faith and have fear. No, those things doesn't work. Faith is like, I'm going to step out boldly.
It's like you have solidarity that it's going to happen.
That's right. Boldly, I'm going to step out, And I think that when other people can't see it, that actually gets me fired up. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to show you then. It's like
something big's about to happen.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Exactly. When people can't see it, you go, oh, man. And honestly, like that was something that Steve Stout used to say. Stout owns and runs Translation. He was my boss for 4 years. And Stout would say, if you have an idea that is logical and sound and no one understands it, no one gets it, you're onto something.
Shit. That's some good advice.
Yeah, it's great advice.
Last question.
Yep.
What's a door you need to kick in right now to take yourself to another level?
Ooh. Someone asked me, how can I help? And I was like, yo, it was before, opportunity. And he said, if you sold 1 million books today, would you be able to like really fully realize the value of that? And I was like, no. I was like, I have like my infrastructure is not in order. I'm like ragtagging it. I'm raw dogging it out here. No, I'm joking. I'm just being super reactive. I don't have like an infrastructure. That's the door I need to kick in. I need you have a team of people, and these people are brilliant.
Yeah, behind this camera is a hornet's nest of people.
Brilliant people. Seriously, you brilliant people who are giving you ideas, and you're like, oh man, you are the Kanye of the situation. Old Kanye, not new Kanye.
Yeah, I'll take that. I'll take the W on that.
You're the creative director in this. That you're getting ideas, go, oh, that's cool, and you're putting it together to make pancakes.
Yeah, like we had a serious conversation last week about how do we stack people on top of each other here because we're running out of space.
Yeah, I mean, so like, and like absent of like human capital for me, it's just me and my assistant right now. And I think that there are opportunities that I miss, either just because my inbox is flooded, but like that aside, that's like minute, I think. But it's like they're just things I can't see because my head is down, where I need to either have my head down and someone looking over, or someone's head down and I look over. But to do both, I think it's there's a ceiling that I'm approaching.
So what is the door?
The door is heterogeneity in ideas, diversity of ideas. I need a coach to do this. I need someone to do that. I need someone to do this, to say, hey, Marcus, like, you need to think about that. It's like a company who hits, $10 million in revenue and can't get over it. They go, why can't we get there? Why can't we get there? It's like, because you don't have someone telling you, like, if you arch your wrist just a little bit more,
Give it a little flick.
the free throw, your jump shot would just be better. I need that. That's the door I'm like rigorously kicking in.
Yeah, kick that fucking door in, man.
Trying, man.
We'll have a chat afterward. I got some ideas. But dude, from the bottom of my heart, you're a beautiful friend. We've known each other for years, and just so incredible to watch what you're doing. And it's been such a joy just to see you growing and crushing it and bringing value to the entire market.
I'm grateful for it, man. And I feel exactly the same way about you.
Hell yeah, brother.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you being here. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yo, my name's Dane Walker and I am disgustingly obsessed with branding. I had to figure out a way to do branding every single day, so I branded myself. Then I started my agency, Rival. And hired a team of branding mavericks hell-bent on creating brands so good that they'll make your competition shit their pants. So here's the thing, you want your brand to go viral and Rival makes brands go viral. That's why we're offering you a free 30-minute branding session to get an expert's opinion. If you don't believe me, the proof is in the pudding. Here's what clients have to say about Rival.
Rival is trusted by brands like Nutrition Warehouse, Light My Bricks, and Vumi.
So if you want to absolutely smoke the competition and make your brand go viral, hit the link below and book in your free 30-minute branding session.